Happy New Now, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with you as always. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. While listening, you'll be exposed to inspiring, empowering, and unifying perspectives that I'm highly confident will yield stellar results in your life if you opt to try them on for size. Also, I'm super happy to announce that we have officially launched our new late-night style, consciousness-elevating video variety talk show, Optimistic, which features live visionary artists, soul share interviews, retreat guests that come here to the Mystic Manor to join me and the interviewee on the stage during the last night of their stay, their week-long stay, as well as the show concluding with live musical performances. We're going to be releasing episodes every other Sunday at 11:11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you can go to optimistic.tv, that's spelled OPTIMYSTIC.tv, to join our watch party for each future episode's release or to check out past episodes. We were originally going to be releasing Optimistic episodes every Sunday. However, as a community, following the flow of what is wanting to come through in these unique and unprecedented times with so many of our soul family stuck at home, craving connection, we have decided to move to releasing episodes every other Sunday so that those of us here on the production team at the Mystic Manor can free up some time and energy to help create virtual community for all of you P-heads out there. And we are accomplishing that aim by launching our new Mystic Manor online retreat and play shops re-membership program. It's going to entail live play shops twice daily, 7 days a week, behind the scenes footage here at the Mystic Manor each day, access to a Facebook group where we do short interactive 1-minute video challenges and reflect back to each other about our experiences, live Q&As with me and some of the other facilitators, and more. It's a super robust program. It's facilitated by over a dozen of us here at the Mystic Manor, and in an effort to support all you P-heads out there stuck at home craving connection, for a limited time, it is going to be totally free to sign up on our Patreon page, which is linked at optimistic.tv. Just be sure to fill out the form link that's located at the top of our About section on Patreon so we can make sure you have access. Otherwise, we're super excited to have you join in all the magic with us that's happening here every single day at the Mystic Manor and to expand our community together. Here we grow. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Jackie Woodside here with me on the show. Jackie is a coach, author, and trainer that is passionate about extending the edge of human potential. And I am ready to explore the edge of human potential with you, Jackie. Hello, welcome to the show, my friend.
Awesome. Hey, how you? I'm so glad to be here with you. Thank you so much for just, your patience in getting us each other on each other's schedule and being in communication with each other. I'm glad we're here.
I think you were the patient one in this case since I rescheduled a few times.
No, man. It's all good.
And as I always say, whenever there's been a lot of rescheduling, usually that ends up being some of the most epic podcasts. And you announced that was your intention for this to be the best podcast ever when we started, and I think that is well on its way to happening, us manifesting. And we got connected through a mutual friend and podcaster, Matt Belair. Shout out Matt, who I love. Yeah. Check out the Matt Belair podcast if you have not. And so, yeah, all the cards are stacked in our favor of having an epic time today in an epic podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start with the same question I always start with, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over and says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer, rather. What do you say?
Gosh, that's a great question. So I would look at her and smile warmly, give her an energetic embrace, not touching her because that's weird in an elevator. And you just don't want to be weird in an elevator.
Yeah,
And
that,
I would
that
say,
depends. I mean, there are some times that being weird.
yeah,
in an
but there's
elevator might be-
cameras, dude, so you can't be too weird,
Well,
right?
maybe you like the cameras. You never know.
We're going to have fun, I can tell. So yeah, I would look at her in a warm embrace energetically and say, my passion in life is raising consciousness on the planet.
Ooh.
To which she would probably glaze over and look the other way. And then I would follow that up with, I'll bet you have no idea what that means. Let me tell you.
Right.
So, and if she's still listening, I would say raising consciousness on the planet really means helping people go deeply within to recognize that it is their pattern of beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts that creates a vibratory pattern in which we live that gives us our experience of life. And that vibratory pattern is what I call your vibe. And that is what I mean by raising consciousness on the planet. For people to be massively self-aware and recognize that life is entirely 100% an inside job. And the more people on the planet that we can get to elevate their vibe, raise their consciousness, recognize that the beliefs, attitudes, emotions, and thoughts that they are having may not be serving the outcomes that they desire, and teaching people the ability, yes, you can change your beliefs. Yes, you can change your emotions. Yes, you can change your thoughts. You are not the passive victim of the way that you think.
Right.
So, and that's what I've devoted and committed my life to. Is it the 10th floor yet?
I think I call that the Willy Wonka answer, where you shot. Have you seen Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory? Where
I have, but I don't know what you mean by that. It makes me sound like I'm wonky.
Actually, wonky is kind of a compliment in my world. And I wasn't calling you wonky. What I was suggesting is, so if at the end of Willy Wonka, they take an elevator and it goes through the top of the building and into outer space, essentially. So,
that's so cool.
So you took me on the Willy Wonka elevator ride, which is my favorite kind of ride. I'm a big Willy Wonka fan, so that is a compliment.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. And whether it sound wonky or not. I mean, right, I always tell people this. It's like, what do you do? Well, I'm a trainer and I'm a coach. I'm an author. But really, like, what I am is a consciousness teacher. But if you say that to people on an elevator or at a cocktail party, their eyes glaze over.
Yep.
So I have to dress it up.
Yep. I'm so with that. I always say, even if you read the description of this podcast, it's like it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration, which is what we do 5 days a week. And I always say, I'm a consciousness teacher. I'm a teacher of this, but more importantly, I'm a student. I always say we teach best what we most need to learn. So I find myself teaching a lot. And then the next day I'm in a situation where it's like, oh, this is what you were just teaching. Let's see you put it into practice, dude. And
exactly right.
Whew, that can be quite the journey for us all.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the best thing about being somebody in this field of, consciousness teacher. And by the way, I've been a consciousness teacher for about 30 years.
Yeah.
So I've been a consciousness teacher before consciousness was a thing.
Yep.
But the best thing about being in this field of, personal development or personal performance, consciousness is, the best thing about teaching it is living it.
Yep.
Because you can't really I guess you can, but for me, there's no integrity in saying things to other people that I'm not putting in my life myself every single day in who I am, how I live, how I think, what I believe, and how I'm managing myself. So it's just such a blessing to be in this field doing this work and to share it with people like you.
Yeah, it really, for me, one of the most challenging perspectives that I do my best, sometimes more successful than others, of implementing is this perspective too of, okay, Brandon, remember, everyone else is the master and you're the student. And that is like, because even if they're acting a fool, right? Flipping you off on the freeway or whatever. Okay. And in this moment, they're the teacher because they're helping me to sharpen my axe and how I actually deal with someone who is being belligerent or, and so, wow, that for me is, and like I said, I have moments where I'm like really proud of my development. And then you have those moments of like, oh, I just backpedaled a little bit. I just, And so it is, I think the journey is a spiral for us all too. You circle back on things that you believe you have, really processed and worked through. And then it's like, oh, but wait, there's more.
Yeah, exactly right.
So I'd love to hear, Jackie, a little bit of your background. I always love to know the backstory of who I'm dealing with. Obviously 30 years of, teaching, transformational work, consciousness expansive work. It makes you an OG in this field. I started on my spiritual journey maybe 20 years ago, and would, talk about it to anyone who would listen, and then really stepped into a role of, I guess, more of a teacher in the last 5 years with this podcast.
Nice.
And, but 30 years is going really back, so I'd love to hear what that journey's been like for you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, definitely. I've been doing this. I've been doing this kind of work longer than a lot of my current students have been alive at this point,
right?
Which makes me sound ancient, but whatever.
We're all timeless and eternal. So
that's right. We're all timeless anyway. So gosh, how do I start? What's my story? I never want to bore people with like all of this tiny detail.
Sure, as much as it feels relevant to give us an idea of how you got here.
I'll just say this. Yeah, I was born, and then life happened.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew it, Jackie.
I had that cosmic experience of shedding my ethereal experience where I did not have a body. And I was like, I looked at you and I said, "Hey, dude, let's incarnate together." And you're like, "Yes, let's do it." And like, whoosh, there we were. We incarnated.
Right.
So I took physical form, and then life happened. Fast forward to kind of young adult, mid adulthood, and I was kind of crazy. I was a person that has been diagnosed with just about everything you'd be diagnosed with. I had a lot of psychiatric issues, long-standing chronic depression, ADD, post-traumatic stress disorder, multiple addictions, and at some point, at multiple points, I said, I need to get my shit together. And at some point I actually did. So I was a therapist I've been a therapist was a therapist for about 28, 30 years. And also have been doing consciousness work and spiritual teacher and designing courses of teaching people consciousness work. So I became a professional certified coach about 25 years ago. So I've been I stopped doing therapy a few years ago, so I no longer do that. I'm a full-time author, speaker, coach. So, and what's unique about that journey is that a lot of people look at my life today, I travel and I speak and I've written books and I'm on podcasts like this, and they're like, wow, she's so fortunate. But I just really, my biggest message for people is to know that no matter where you are in life right now, no matter what your life is like, you have the ability to transform it into the exact nature of what you want your life to be.
Right.
So, I've lived through everything. So domestic violence, like that was part of my background,
wow.
My early experiences, and being homeless, like homelessness was poverty was part of my early experience. So like, there's really very, very little people can be like, yeah, but you didn't. It's like, yeah, no, I did. I lived through that one too. Wow. And what I know about life is that when your consciousness changes, and this is so cliche. When your consciousness changes, everything changes. Everything changes. But what I mean by that, see, a lot of people don't really understand exactly what that means. It sounds like this lofty platitude or philosophy, and it's not. So my biggest thing in life is for people to understand that consciousness is the most practical thing that you can study. So when I say when your consciousness changes, everything changes, what I mean is when you recognize that your beliefs are not serving you, that they're in the realm of victimization and victimhood and survival and like, oh my God, it's so hard and I'm just getting by and I'm just getting through. And when you believe that life is hard and it's going to be hard and, and I'm doing all I can, I'm just getting by. If that's the lens through which you see life, that's what life will give you. Yep. It's not that life is that way. It's that you are that way.
Right.
So that's the way I was because of X, Y, and Z. I had just an unbelievable childhood. Like I can't even imagine. Just the one tip of the iceberg is my dad, his brother, and his father all died within 9 months of each other in 3 separate car accidents.
And when? So I'm sorry, say that again. Within?
Sure. My dad, his brother, and his father. So my grandmother lost her husband and 2 sons, all within 9 months of each other. All in separate car accidents.
Wow.
So that's just one little tidbit, right? So I had all of this stuff in life happen, and because of the culture I was raised in, and the karma that I came in with, the consciousness that I came in with, and the early life experiences I had, I came to see life is difficult and hard, and I better protect myself, and I have to be careful. All of the same things that every human being on the planet thinks. It's not that, like, those were just my unique circumstances, but the reality is that's the human journey. We incarnate into our physical expression, and we forget that we are one with the divine.
Right.
That we are one with God. We are spirit having a body.
Right.
Not a body having a spirit. We are spirit having a body. We've chosen a body at this point because, ice cream is delicious and pizza is really good.
Yes,
and
it is.
Sex is the bomb, right? So
it's like pizza. I mean, there's really,
there's
no
like
bad
sex pizza. There's no bad pizza.
Better.
There's no bad sex, right? There's like walks on the beach. So we incarnated to have walks on the beach and sex and pizza and ice cream. Like, we incarnated to have that experience, but because we incarnated, we forgot that we're divine, that we are one with God. So anyway, when I say raising your consciousness changed everything, I mean, looking at the worldview that you have and saying, this worldview creates these experiences. If I want to have a different experience, I need to create a different worldview. And then you dive in and you go to work on changing your beliefs and your emotions and your attitudes and your thoughts. And so you asked me a little bit about myself, and I went into my philosophy, because that's been my, that is me. Yep. That's been my journey. I really used to believe that, like, I had to survive life, or that I was the victim of life, or I would be fine if she just loved me, or if he thought I was okay, or, if this just happened, I would be okay. I used to think that. Yeah. And now I don't, and now I have this whole, we can go into what some of the philosophies are, but that was my early life. So there was a lot of trauma. My mom was left widowed with 3 young children. Wow. And a high school education in her 60s.
Wow.
Delightful woman, but she spent a lot of time drinking her sorrows away.
Right.
And having issues with rage and violence. And so, but that's just what happened. It's not who I am.
Right. I love how you said that. A couple of things that come up for me is, instantly when you were first talking, I thought of Wayne Dyer, one of my favorite quotes by him: "If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change."
Things you look at change.
It's so good. And then, what you just said there reminds me of something my good friend Chris Jackson, who's co-hosted quite a bit on the show, talks often about. He's like, things just happen, like you just said. It's so, instead of where we really miss the boat in what we're used to doing is labeling and assigning a value to something. Like, for example, like if I were to smack you and you were to say, "Oh my gosh, Brandon abused me." Right. And now you take that story forward. There's so much energy tied up in abuse. Right. Or, I was hit, I was touched on the face and it was, it stung. Right. Or maybe it was a love tap, or whatever. Like, so just looking at it very, cold as not cold, maybe that's not the word, but just, what are the facts of what happened, right? The facts are, he put his hand back and it connected with my cheek and it stung for a minute. That's a very different energetic than I was abused going forward. Mm-hmm. And so, you start looking and taking things that, where it's not so personal and everyone is acting rational based off of their view of the world. And this idea that it's happening for you, not to you, and, it's there so you can sharpen your axe. And then it starts to make these labeled, scenarios which really tie us down, right? And ruin lives many times. Now you can say, okay, this thing happened. What I get to do is determine how I respond to it. And oftentimes the difference is, the difference between it being a lump of coal or a diamond, right? And so, what are we going to do with it is the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about your books. I haven't had a chance to dive into your books, but I love all of them. Instantly just intrigued me with the titles.
Okay.
And so I'd love to just touch a little bit on each of them, whatever feels the most relevant. It's, calming the chaos and
Yeah.
money vibe and time for a change. And all of them, it's like, oh, I want to know what, having not had the chance to read them yet, how can I get, some tidbits of wisdom from them? I feel would be very valuable for me and the audience.
Sure. So, let's just dive in at a broad view, first of all. So, all I do is I teach consciousness. But again, nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, oh, if I could just raise my consciousness, then my life would be better. People just don't wake up thinking that. I need a new job. I need to get out of this dead-end marriage. I need to get out of this dead-end career. I need more money. I need to write that book. People are thinking about outcomes.
Yeah.
They're thinking about their problems, their worries. So because I understand that, I was a therapist for 30 years. I really understand how human beings operate. So instead of writing books about consciousness, I chose to write books on the 3 hotspots that people have. And the first one is time, and the second one is money, and the third one is change. And my 4th book that I'm working on now is on relationships, right? So all the things that get people tripped up: time, money, change, and relationships. So all of them, really all 3 books are about how to raise your consciousness, but they're how to raise your consciousness about each of those topics.
Gotcha.
So calming the chaos, it's a guide to managing your energy rather than your time, is a killer program in productivity and self-management. So calming the chaos teaches that there's no such thing as time management, because time just is. Time is a constant. The variable is you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the good news or the bad news.
To be determined.
Right? To be determined, right. So the problem isn't that people can't manage time. The challenge that most people have is managing themselves.
Right.
Managing their beliefs, emotions, attitudes, thoughts, and behaviors. So when it comes to, everybody's going, oh, God, so much to do. I'm so busy. I have so much going on. I can't keep up. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. So I debunk that a little bit. And I look at the fact that most people say they're so busy because it's the current status symbol.
Yep.
Busy is the new rich.
Yeah. Right.
Busy is the new rich. So I unpack that and say, if you are unconscious about I'm so busy, you can lead your life chronically busy, but have no sense of being productive at all. And for me, productive means moving clearly and consistently towards what is important to you. So I've had, hundreds of coaching clients over the years. They all come to me because they're too busy, but they're not getting done what's important to them.
Right.
So I help them shift from being busy to productive.
Love that.
Yeah, it's a huge shift. What's the energy of that word busy? How does that word feel when you hear it from someone else?
Stressful.
Right? It's stressful. It's chaotic. It's constricted. The energy of like, oh my God, I'm so busy. People say that, and it's a constricted energy. You're creating that.
Yeah.
Now, similarly, how does it feel when you're like, dang, I had a really productive day?
Yeah.
How does that energy feel?
Rewarding.
Yeah, it's rewarding. It's expansive, right? So the question that I want to pose to you, your listeners, to society in general, if the energy of, God, I'm so busy is restrictive and constrictive and stressful and chaotic, and the energy of, oh man, I was like so productive today, of that word is so high vibe and expansive, why do we all walk around creating low vibratory patterns?
So true. Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, because the answer to that is because that's the consciousness that we're living in as a society.
Right.
We're living in low consciousness. We're living in what I call survival and stress consciousness.
Right. Survival instead of thrival, right?
Right. Survival instead of thrival. Yes, exactly. So I really like to help people understand that their experience of being, quote, so busy is a direct reflection of the consciousness that they're living in.
Yep.
So you see how I took this, simple topic of time and self-management and productivity and turned it into a course on how to elevate consciousness.
Love that. And, one of the things that you've drawn attention to that's so important is the power that we have as creators to create with our words. Words are energy, right? Everything is vibrational, and it is certainly a vibrational offering to the world when you speak, and you're putting something out there that is, resonating in that which is like unto itself is drawn. So we are, the creator, casting, abracadabra, you've probably heard before, means I create as I speak, right? You're spelling, you're casting a spell. Which spell do you want to cast? Do you want to cast a productive spell or a busy spell? And
right. Yeah. And, I'm also a coach. So I know there's more to it than just, oh, stop saying you're so busy and then you'll be productive.
Right.
There's more to it than that.
Yep.
So, there's a whole bunch of mindset and skill set tasks that need to be accomplished that help you to raise your vibe. Because if you just, change your language, but you don't add skills to it, you might have a little bit better experience of life, but you're going to end up being kind of right back where you were in that sense of overwhelm because you haven't really developed the self-management skills that are necessary in order for you to really create that shift to the energetic of what productive really is, which is clearly and consistently taking ground on what's important to you, actually getting stuff done, accomplishing what's meaningful to you.
Right. Yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful shift.
And that's just one, that's just one part of the book is this whole notion of busy versus productive. But the book really, the whole program, I've got a webinar on it also that I created, a 4-part webinar.
And this is Calming the Chaos, just to be clear?
Yeah, okay. Calming the Chaos, right. It's a 4-part webinar, a book and a workbook. It was based on a course that I taught for many years called Energy Management, learning how to manage your energy rather than your time. And the premise of it really is that everything that we are experiencing is an outpicturing of the consciousness that we live in. So look, I'm not sitting around laying on the couch eating bonbons, but I never feel this sense of like, oh my God, I can't keep up. I'm so stressed. I've got, I don't create that consciousness for myself. So the question, I believe, for those of us that are committed to living a high vibration spiritual life, really making a difference in the world, making an impact, is how do I both, kick ass on the physical plane while keeping that high vibration on the spiritual plane?
That's the dance. And
that's the dance, baby.
Woo, and that is one, this is so great for me because I am definitely working on shifting more from a productive, feeling productive over busy. It's like, I definitely have, I've stepped into a lot, and it's been a lot to say, oh my gosh, like don't get caught up in the energy of I can't keep up and I'm too busy and there's too much to do. And that has been, quite the journey for me.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of really successful people as coaching clients of mine, people that have accomplished an incredible amount of worldly success. And then they come to me not because they need to expand their business or make more money or shift their career. No, they've kind of got all that handled, but they end up coming to me because they've not been able to create a life of meaning. And they, even though they've got the yacht and the summer home or the vacation home and the beautiful spouse or, gorgeous husband or whatever, they've got all of that, but there's this sense of like, is this it?
Yeah, right.
So, some of my other work, and that's the raising consciousness, it's not just about getting more done, being more productive. It's also about creating a life that's meaningful to you. And that, one of my programs, the Life Design Program, that's what it's all about, taking these awesome principles of how to be productive rather than busy, how to raise your consciousness. But then how do you get to work creating a life that's based on who you came here to be?
Yeah.
Actually having the actions that you're engaged in, the conversations that you're having, be a direct correlation to the vibratory pattern that you were born into or born to live. Living life from the inside out based on who you were born to be. Yeah. And that may sound like ridiculously hairy-fairy to people who aren't into vibratory spiritual, but I really do believe that like from your name, from the time that you were born to like, there's an energetic pattern that only you came here to deliver. Like, not that you're like all that and it's all this pressure, no, you're just another human being of billions of human beings on this planet. And we're all vibrational beings here to elevate our consciousness back to the divinity from which we came.
Right.
And is your life an expression of that? And that's, another one of my courses, the Life Design course, is all about that. Is my life a reflection of who I came here to be. And I just love this. I could talk about these topics forever.
Me too.
I just love this stuff.
This is my favorite topic as well. It's so rewarding to explore, and you can talk about the same thing. I always say on the show, I repeat myself all the time. I mean, people have been listening to, this is like episode 1200 or something. People who've been listening for years, like probably half of them can predict what I'm going to say next.
Oh, that's
and there's
funny.
probably people out there laughing right now because they've already done it in this conversation. And it's one of the things that I always talk about is finding that dharma, that purpose. And how do I, a lot of people have gotten to the goal line with success in life, and then they look around and say, okay, now I need to work on the soul line. And so, what is the soul line? Well, it's finding that rewarding work, like that feels really like, wow, this is what it's all about. And, I always will quote Gandhi on this, where Gandhi said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. And I always add to that, the reason I believe that holds true is because there are no others. And we're going to find an opportunity to give away what we want for ourselves, in a sense, to a quote unquote other, which is really an illusory separation that's, not actually, the truth of what's going on behind it. There's relative truth, right? You and I are separate. That's true. You and I are one. That's true. From the most expanded view, you and I are one. And so, once you start understanding that's the nature of the situation in which you find yourself, that's the premise from which to operate from, that base level, root level, the way your higher self, expanded self, and sees the chessboard, if you will, is where the reward is going to come from, the fulfillment. And it's because you're always doing it to yourself.
So I love what you just said about that Gandhi quote, that there is no other, there is no service to others. And I love where you're going with this conversation about the soul line versus goal line. That's cool. I'm going to steal that from you.
You can have it.
That's
I
awesome.
stole it from someone else. And, thanks, Craig.
Someone else, right, of course. Right. That's actually one of the primary things that we get into in the life design course. It's the first place that we begin. And that is that whole question of what's our purpose in life. And I just take some liberties, because to me, I don't think it's that difficult. I don't think you have to go out and figure out your purpose in life. In fact, I believe that you declare your purpose in life. And that I differentiate purpose from mission. So purpose is why humanity is on the planet. Mission is my own individual expression of my humanity. So purpose,
Gotcha.
in my philosophy that I teach, is our purpose. You, me, all of humanity. Our purpose. We are here to grow in consciousness back to the divinity from which we came. Why were we born? Why did we incarnate? We came into the human expression, separating ourselves, taking physical form, leaving just the etheric body, coming into physical form. And our path and purpose here is to grow in our energetic consciousness to experience and express our divinity here on earth. That's what we're here for.
Right.
Now, what you do with your life is a different question. You said something about like finding the work that's meaningful, that you express your purpose in. I don't necessarily think it's just about the work. I think it's about the being, being that being of who you came here to be, all the time, everywhere, with no exception.
Right.
So, for me, and that's your mission. I teach my students, your mission isn't your job description.
Right.
It's who you're being, no matter what you're doing.
Well, I love that, because I always talk about, this goes back to what you said earlier, even in code, it's all reflections and tied in energetically and symbolically, even back to our name. And so I'll bring that one home for you. So me, I am like a super doer, right? And I fully agree with what you just said about, being is the essence of it all. And I think it's encoded in my name that I'm meant to really get that message / lesson / way in which to navigate 3D reality, because my initials are BBB. So I think I came in with a tip.
Cool. That is so cool. I love that. I'm a little jealous. That's awesome.
Well, maybe it's because
Yeah,
you don't need to learn that lesson as much as me. So you're like, yeah, he can take those initials.
yeah, exactly. That's interesting. My initials are JAW, and I talk in
I
jaw,
love
and
that.
I talk for a
I
living. So
love
there
it.
you
I
go.
love it. I love it. It's so cool.
Yeah, but I do. I'm really passionate about people understanding that, you can express your soul's purpose, whether you do it through your career or not. I don't want people, I don't want everyone to feel like, oh, I've got to go out and, be this amazing spiritual teacher or
Totally.
write a life-changing book. No, you can express your mission and purpose in life no matter what you're doing.
Yep.
Just go be great for the world, be loving, be kind, be generous, be attentive, bring your being, essential nature to everything that you do. So I want to be living my mission, whether or not I'm watching my son play a soccer game or
Yep.
hanging out with my basketball player friends. I'm a basketball player, on the court with my basketball player friends, or, leading a webinar or a course or working with my coaching clients. I want to be the essence of my mission and purpose, no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And in what you're saying is so powerful. It's like comparison is a symptom of confusion, I believe. And it's like when you're comparing yourself to someone else, like, oh, I need to be a teacher like, Jackie or Brandon or someone else, or I need to, be the Kobe Bryant if I'm going to play basketball or whatever. And back to the Gandhi example, my friend and a former guest on the show, Charles Eisenstein, he talks about, and I've referenced this many times, I heard him giving a talk and he said, who was more important to the world, Gandhi or Gandhi's grandmother? Right? Being she raised him and sort of crafted him into the man that he was, and then he had the ripple of impact that he did. But if it wasn't for her, would he have done that? So she may have affected one person technically, and he had affected millions, but who's more? So this whole comparison thing, you may be at that soccer game and say, spend 5 minutes sharing your powerful essence and vibration with someone authentically that completely shifts, and little did you know you were talking to a receptive 10-year-old who took on that perspective that about consciousness that you just shared, who goes on to be, the ruler of the planet one day or whatever. You just never know. And so, comparison is just pointless because, we all have such different paths and they're all equally valid and important. And just being here is you already won.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And we get so tripped up with things like, oh, what's my career? I have to have the right expression, or I have to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
That's when, again, all my years as a therapist and a coach, the other place that I see people get really tripped up is around money.
Yeah.
Money and career, and am I doing the right thing? And, could I be making more money doing this? Or I should be doing that. And, this whole notion of our relationship to our self-expression, really, career choice, and then how that manifests in our financial life. It's such a place that people have such stress and angst over. And as did I, by the way. I will remind you, I was homeless. I will remind you, I came from a lot of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
I was so poor when I finished graduate school. I had absolutely no money left. And it was way back in the day. We couldn't use a credit card to buy groceries. Mm-hmm. I had to buy food with my Mobile Mart gas card.
Wow.
Because I literally had no money left for, 2 or 3 weeks until I got my first paycheck when I got my job after graduate school.
Wow.
So I don't want people to be like, oh, Jackie, it's easy for you to say because you make all this money and you're doing all that. Yeah, no, believe me, it's something else I did in graduate school because, again, I didn't have any money and I had to put myself through graduate school. I would scour the newspapers, the Boston local newspapers, for medical trial exams that were paid medical trials. Mm-hmm. And I would go to Boston MGH, Mass General Hospital, or any of the local Boston hospitals. And I would submit my body for medical testing because it paid pretty well.
Wow.
I would, spend a couple hours in some back laboratory in the basement of MGH, and I would come out with a check for $200 or $250. And, when I was putting myself through grad school, working awake overnights at my job, and then, going to school all day, doing my internship all day, Yeah. So like really no kidding. I come from massive scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And I am proud to say I have over 7-figure assets and, make a multiple 6-figure income and own 3 houses and
Wow.
have, a boat, 2 jet skis and 5 kayaks and 2 waterfront homes. And I'm not saying all that to be like, just come, chill with me. I'm all that. No, I'm not all that. That's the whole freaking point.
You're right.
I was a shitstorm, financially and in every other way. So what changed? What changed was my money consciousness. Probably my time consciousness changed first, right? That was my first book, We're Calming the Chaos. And then the second thing that changed was my money consciousness. I taught prosperity courses, and then I wrote the book called Money Vibe. And it was in that constant application of, is this, here, let me show you exactly what I mean by raising your conscious, raising your vibe. I'd have some like, oh my God, my son's tuition, it's so much. And my son goes to a private school. Oh my God, how I remember when my son's tuition was only $25,000 a year. And I thought for sure, like, oh my God, this is going to break us.
Right.
And now let me just say it's multiple times more than that for the schools he's now going to. So I would look at that. Let's go back to the $25,000 a year. I'd be like, oh my God, how am I ever going to afford that? That is ridiculous. We can't afford $25,000 a year. That's just going to put us over the edge. I don't know how we're going to do this. And then I would look at that thought and I would look at that emotion. Use your mind to train your brain. Use your mind to train your brain. I would use my mind, my higher essence, my consciousness to observe the repetitive patterns of my brain, neurological wiring. And I'd say, is that thought going to serve the experience that you want to have? Is that feeling going to create the vibration to allow flow in your life?
Right.
And then I change it. So I teach in the Money Vibe book a process I call the 3 C's: catch it, challenge it, change it. Where you see the thought or feeling, catch it. You debunk the thought or feeling. Is that really what you want to think? Is that thought going to lead you the experience you have? Can you do any better than that? You've been thinking that since you were 12 years old. I'm a little snarky with my own inner dialogue. Right. So you challenge it or debunk it by talking back to it. And then thirdly, you change it. And simply, what experience do I want to have?
Right.
And then I envision that. And then I'm grateful for that. It's like, of course, I'm going to be paying $35,000 a year, or now, $60,000 a year, $80,000 a year for my son's education. Yeah, of course. And it's funny, as my money consciousness grows, my son's tuition keeps going up.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow. That's funny.
And at each impasse, it's just like, okay, good. And now, my spouse and I just look at each other like, yeah, let's just do this thing. We always figure out a way.
Yeah.
Let's just do this thing. We always figure it out.
That's such a powerful teaching. And it's one of those things too. I think a lot of times people beat themselves up about this. I'm someone who has, I built a company from, living on my friend's couch with no money to an Inc. 500 fastest growing private company in the country that was doing 10 million plus a year in revenue, to losing it all, to, my son has experienced me scrounging for, to get lunch, change in the seat, to, living in super luxury, overlooking the ocean and, and everything in between. And that's been from, as much as I teach and am on the path of expanding my consciousness, even for me, like right now is the most financially challenging position I've been in 15 years with the coronavirus and everything tied into retreats and, and all of my income comes from 2 different travel related ventures. And that's, not exactly a popular thing right at the moment. And, and so I love this, and I catch myself, having limiting belief thoughts. And I'm like, man, if I still am doing this, and I do 5 podcasts a week, all on, your thoughts create your reality. If it is a daily conscious effort. And, for some of us, we have strengths in one area and a weakness in another. And, but I love this catch it, challenge it, change it, because it's so simple and gives us something to grab onto that, you can.
Yeah, I say that's actually one of the potential pitfalls, because what I teach and what you teach, it really is very simple stuff, but it's not easy to apply. Right. People really have to recognize, what conscious living doesn't mean you just shop at Whole Foods and take a yoga class and have crystals on your nightstand. That is not conscious living. I mean, that's nice,
Right.
but it's just not conscious living. Conscious living means you are ongoingly aware of your inner state and able to alter it as you need.
Yep.
That's what being conscious means.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm worried that people won't like what I'm saying on this podcast. Oh, well, is that a helpful thought? Well, no, actually it's not. I really want Brandon to like me. These aren't conscious thoughts, but this is what's going on in the background all the time. I'm a little nervous. Oh, what's behind that nervousness? Well, I have this need to be approved of, as does every other human being.
Right.
Right. So it's noticing that dialogue and then altering how you are talking to yourself and what you are focused on, so that you actually start creating the outcomes you want. Seeing in your mind the image of the experience completed and you having the exact feeling that you want to have.
Yeah.
That's why, before we got on the line, I said to you, listen, my commitment here is that you have the best time you've ever had as a podcaster.
Yeah.
Like I would just want to create that energy and create that experience before we even begin, so we can celebrate that, and then the rest is easy.
Yeah. Right. It's understanding how to architect your reality. And it is, we're going to get better and better and better the more we practice. And it's like, I love this stuff because literally, maybe I'm a slow learner, and that's why I want to talk about it incessantly, because it literally, like you just said, it's one thing to understand it theoretically, and it's another thing to apply it. And what the universe constantly serves us up is opportunities to apply what we've learned, and see if, when the rubber meets the road, if we can apply them. And I believe, and one of the biggest pitfalls is when you fall, when you actually miss the mark, and then people get like down on themselves and beat themselves up. And that's why I kind of pointed it out. And I think vulnerability is a superpower. And like, hey guys, look, if this is a pitfall I still fall in, like, I'm someone who's done 1,300 episodes on this sort of stuff. Like it is a, and for that matter, there, I don't want to be too caught up on it's always a certain way. For someone out there, maybe their life, their soul did all this work in the last life, and it's like, oh yeah, this is so easy. I got it, and I figured it out, and I hardly ever, take the bait of a short-sighted, limiting survival-based thought. And so it's just very, I guess my whole point is all of us, just be really gentle with yourself, and every moment is another chance to turn it all around. In this moment, it's like, we have I feel inspired to be like, oh, wow, I'm more committed than I ever been to catch it, challenge it, and change it. And,
Yeah. Well, and Brandon, that whole thing too of like, beating yourself up, that whole thing, like that is another low consciousness state.
It is, totally.
So I tell my students, my consciousness model is a 4-level model, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 is survival, and 2 is stress, 3 is transformation, and 4 is transcendence. So I just have this 4-level model. And I tell my students, like, don't go level 1 on your level 1 thought. Don't go level 1 on your level 1 experience. So you're like, oh man, this is finances and, coronavirus, and I'm going to be screwed. What's going to happen to me financially? Yep. Oh, wait, no, I'm not supposed to have that thought. Oh, what's the matter with me? I've done 1,200 podcasts,
right.
And I'm still right. So that's just creating more of the same energy.
Yep.
Don't, go low vibe on your low vibe.
Yep.
Go high vibe on your
low vibe.
Don't double down. Don't double down on it. Yeah. When you see yourself, having those experiences of challenge or low vibration or fear, self-doubt, that's the time that you want to bring self-love and compassion.
That's when you deserve it and need it the most.
Snarky. Yeah, or at least snarky humor.
Right. That one works really well for me too.
Yeah, just at least snarky humor of like, oh my God, right? Is that all you're going to keep saying to yourself? You've been saying that to your whole life.
Yeah.
Like, so the whole point, I guess that I'm making is, same as you, Brandon. I have those low consciousness thoughts. I have low vibration fears, just like everybody else. I just don't empower them.
Yeah.
I don't care that I have them. It's like, oh yeah, human being. Oh yeah, there's we're in the middle of a pandemic right here. Sure, there's uncertainty, and what are we going to do? And where's my son going to go to school? And all these decisions we have to make. And if fear comes up, I just look at it like, okay, human being,
right,
having an experience of uncertainty.
Yep.
if people weren't a little anxious in the face of this level of, of economic and healthcare disruption, if people weren't a little anxious, I think I'd worry
Yeah,
about you.
right. That's a great
It's
point.
a really healthy response. Now, you don't want to be lived by that anxiety. You don't want to be lived by that fear.
That.
See, that's the whole thing. People ask me that all the time. Well, Jackie, my mother died, or my spouse got ill. Does that mean I shouldn't be upset about that? I'm like, look, I'm not telling you should or shouldn't have any experience. I think grief is a very sacred emotion.
Absolutely.
Fear and anxiety can be very sacred emotions. The difference is you want to have that emotion, not let that emotion have you.
Yeah, right.
You, the you of you, the God self, I call it your God seed, your God self wants to be in the driver's seat.
Right.
And there you are having that emotion. Yeah, you're having the emotion of anxiety and uncertainty. Yep, got it. That's do I want to be lived by that? No, actually I don't.
Super powerful, differentiation there, because I think a lot of us our emotions are so powerful, we fall into this, oh, that's who I am. I am this emotion in this moment, or I am the person who constantly circles back to this particular emotion of anxiety or fear or stress or whatever. And actually it's these are really, you're the observer behind them all, right? And these are clouds that are going by, and every moment is another chance to turn it all around. And yes, we fall into the hypnosis of staring for a long time at an emotion and going, letting it sort of take us over. And then we're like, oh, hold on, snapped out of it. Okay, every moment's another chance to turn it all around. And
no, absolutely.
Not
just
yourself.
you are not your thoughts. You have your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You have emotions. Just like if you were to pick up your right hand and look at your right hand, you wouldn't say, "Oh, that's who I am." You are not your right hand. You are not your left foot. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions.
Right.
They are all part of your human experience.
Right.
And they only define you to the degree to which you say they do.
Right.
And to understand that, you really have to start differentiating mind from brain, spirit from ego. A lot of your thoughts are just habitual, repetitive thoughts that are programmed in your neural pathways. And a lot of people say, well, I can't help it. It's just the way I think. That's not true.
Yeah.
A lot of your anxious thoughts are just programmed responses from the heart center. Your heart has its own brain. So a lot of your fear-based responses are just programmed because you've had them for so long. And a lot of people will say, well, I can't help it. That's just the way I feel.
Yeah.
Science today proves that is not true. You can help the way you think. You can help the way you feel. In fact, I believe as a person committed to conscious living, you must.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a powerful pivot in perspective. Knowing and understanding that and taking that perspective on as part of your dance from this moment forward. There's probably people, and that you're hearing that for the very first time or even considering that for the very first time. Congratulations that you've come far enough where that would show up in your field and be reflected in front of you.
And again, to contextualize this, I'm a person who has recovered from long-standing, long-term, recurrent major depressive episodes. So again, I don't want you to be like, oh, it's easy for Jackie to say because she's super happy. Nope.
Right.
Was not always the case. This is how I got to be super happy.
Yeah.
This is how I got to be peaceful and centered and fulfilled and doing, incredible work that I love, in an incredible marriage. Honestly, I say this often, I'm one of the happiest, least stressed, most productive people I know.
Wow.
And that did not happen by accident.
Sure. Well, I always say that it's for anyone who's skeptical about a lot of these perspectives and so forth, I always say, just listen with an open mind and try it on for size and see what the real tell is what are the results that it gets. Right. And so what you're speaking to is just that. Okay, I tried on a certain perspective on navigating 3D reality, and here's the results it got. And where it led me out of into. It's if that's not a testament to the validity of it, I don't really know what other measure you would use.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so powerful. But again, the principles are so simple that people often think, well, that it can't be that.
Yep.
But they're just so not easy to put in your life. So funny. I was working with a coaching client, and I taught him like the 3 C's process, and he was dealing with limitation around money. I was doing some money vibe coaching with him, and he came back the next week. He's like, and I was like, so how'd it go? He's like, yeah, I tried it, it didn't work. I was like, well, hold on, let me work with this. So you caught the thought, yeah, caught the thought, and you challenge it, yeah, challenge it, good, okay, and you're able to turn around, yeah, no, absolutely, turned around. I said, how'd you feel? He said, oh, I felt great. He said, but it came back, like the next hour, I had the same thought, and I just laughed. I'm like, no kidding. I said, do you know what that makes you? He said, no, what? I said, that makes you a human being.
Yeah, right. It's like it makes me think back to my friend that I grew up with, who's just like, you got to know the character to really appreciate the comment, and just such a character. And I remember him, he said to me, one time he goes, oh, we were talking about some challenge. He goes, well, yeah, I tried the spirituality thing. It didn't work.
It didn't work, right? I tried to meditate before. It didn't work.
It's not quite. It's a daily conscious effort. It's like no one got to be the star athlete with going to the gym one day.
Going to the gym once, right? Yeah, I mean, it does parallel meditation. I'm a huge proponent of meditation, and I have a meditation practice myself, and so I often teach that to people, and they'll be like, "Oh, Jackie, I just tried that. I couldn't meditate." I'll say, well, what do you mean? Well, my thoughts kept going all over the place. I just laughed. I was like, no, that is meditation.
Yeah.
That's the fact that you saw that your thoughts were going all over the place.
Yep.
That was meditation. So people just don't understand it.
I love Osho's sort of perspective on meditation is just, and of course he's a controversial figure, which a lot of times I think people throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there was anything screwed up that someone did, then everything they ever taught was, wrong. And I think we have to be really careful with that, but that's a whole nother topic. One of the things that he talked about that I really resonate with meditation, because as someone who talks fast, thinks fast, moves fast, doer, more, I came here to BBB and learn that one, and the doing part and thinking and, lots of thoughts is not challenging at all for me. And so a lot of times, I really, for the longest time, kind of was like, okay, meditation, I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't. And his perspective on it is just showing up to sit and be with yourself. You did it. You win. You just the attempt and making the time for yourself. That is the win. And I love that because it's a starting point even, and of course, the more you show up, the better you're going to get at shooting the baskets and making them, and it's going to start to get deeper and richer and more fulfilling and rewarding. And so I for me, that one, out of all the techniques and thoughts around meditation that I explored, that's the one that really has served me personally the best.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a wonderful practice. And, so a lot of what you and I are committed to, they're earth-shattering, life-changing principles. And the more we can get people to live them, because it really is not about knowing. Now, I have a little bit of a pet peeve about people who are serial workshop people. Oh, I did that course, and then I did that course. Oh, and I read that book, and I did that program. It's like, yeah, okay, but what are you putting in your life?
Integration.
So, yeah, one of the things I like to leave people with or say to people is like, okay, that's awesome, but go deep into one philosophy, rather than go broad with a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Right.
And I think that's really maybe is part of the wake-up call and the experience that we're having right now with this global upheaval of, people know a lot, but how are they actually living?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I love to do, Jackie, is hear a story of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. I imagine you have something fun up your sleeve.
Well, thanks for asking. Yeah, I have so many to choose from.
All right, we want to hear them all.
How
many hours you got?
I know how many hours we got. I guess I'll choose one of my favorite ones because it ties into so many pieces of my work around life design and money vibe and all of that. So I said I live between three different houses. I misspoke when I said I own three houses. I own two, but live between three. So Washington, D.C. and Central Massachusetts and upstate New York. I have three different homes that I live between.
Gotcha.
So I used to live in Massachusetts. I'm in DC now, but I have a house in Massachusetts, a lakefront home, which I just love. And but it had been my dream. I grew up on the St. Lawrence River, Thousand Islands in upstate New York. And it had been my dream since I was a girl to have a summer home there, to buy my great aunt and uncle's cottage someday, and be able to spend my summers, be self-employed and be able to spend my summers in the Thousand Islands in upstate New York.
Cool.
Beautiful up there. Don't tell anybody about it. If anybody's listening, just blot out this part. Don't go visit the Thousand Islands. It's so incredible. And very few people know about it. So one of the things that's incredible is it's just very spacious and serene. But anyway,
really good salad dressing.
Yeah, it was on like, so I keep it is the salad dressing came from the Thousand Islands. That's exactly right. Came from Thousand Islands. Anyway, so it had been on all my vision boards. I keep a vision journal actually with images in my vision book. And so I'd had it in my vision board for years and, something I'd always wanted to do. Well, my cousin who owned my great aunt and uncle's cottage called me way, way, way earlier than I thought he would and said, Jackie, I just can't keep it up, not taking care of it. If you want to buy our family cottage, it's time. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to put it on the market. And no kidding, that call came about 20 years earlier than I thought it.
Wow.
So I was financially unprepared. I had a 2-year-old. I had a 2-year-old son. I was a full-time social worker, making, what full-time social workers make.
Yeah.
My spouse worked at a nonprofit. So we just bought our house not that long before, a lakefront house in Massachusetts. So I was just like, oh my gosh, and I knew it had been a lifelong dream of mine. So of course, I had two thoughts simultaneously. One is my spouse is going to kill me because, second thought, I'm going to buy this thing.
Yes.
That was just it, right? So I came home and told my spouse that, my cousin had called and everything. And she's just so great. She was just like all on board, like, yes, we'll figure it out. It's awesome. Well, that weekend, that was like a Wednesday or Thursday. That weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, two of my best friends from college came to visit me, who I had not seen in 10 years. And I was telling them about this quote unquote problem that I had, that my cousin wanted to sell me my family summer property. And we didn't have the money to do it. How are we going to do this? And it was just... So ironically, my friends who are a married couple, they live between two houses in Saratoga and Lake Placid, New York. And when they live in one, they rent out the other on HomeAway and Airbnb. Mm-hmm. And then that season changes and they go back to the other. And they had done that for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And they looked around my house and said, this is a beautiful house on a lake in central New England, an hour from Boston, an hour from Cape Cod, an hour from the White Mountains, on water. Rent that, move up to your summer home, rent this out over the summers, take that money and pay for make your annual payment to your cousin for the house. And I was like,
ooh,
what?
Good plan.
And yeah, right. So by the end of that weekend, we had staged the house, taken photos because one of them was a professional photographer. They gave me all of their forms to set us up on the online platform with HomeAway and Airbnb. Mm. It wasn't Airbnb back then; it was HomeAway.
Yep.
And we were good to go. That by the end of the weekend, I had a new HomeAway account with gorgeous pictures and all my forms and policies and everything in place. That first year, I paid my cousin $14,000, one lump sum payment for that first year of having the cottage, and I made $15,100 in renting out the house.
Wow.
So, and I had not seen those people in 10 years. And I hadn't even really been in touch with them. I mean, a little bit here and there, we were college buddies kind of thing. Yep. But I had not seen them in 10 years.
Right.
So what are the chances on the same week, in the same 3 or 4 days, that I get this call from my cousin that he's going to sell this house 20 years before I thought he would? Yeah. That these people show up with the exact answer to the problem that I had. Yep. And, that was, my son's 14 now. That was 12 years ago. The cottage is now paid for. And we have renovated it 3 times and enjoy spending our summers there and continuing the family legacy of raising my son where I was raised and, a few miles from my mom. So my son gets to spend his summers near his family. And Yeah, and I'm so grateful. And it was entirely a result of these principles, believing it could happen,
Yep.
having it have been on my vision board for many, many years. And then, by the way, taking that leap of faith. I didn't know when I said yes to my cousin, I didn't know that the net would appear.
Yeah.
I leapt.
Right.
I leapt. And then my friends showed up with the answer. And I really think there's some real magic to that as well.
Yeah, that is such a great story. Have you ever heard speaking of the leaping in the net would appear, have you ever heard the quote by Terence McKenna that speaks to that?
I'm not sure.
It's my favorite quote, and I've read it many times on the show, and any chance I get, I read it again. And so here it is. Ready? Nature loves courage. You make the commitment, and nature will respond to that commitment by removing impossible obstacles. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under. It will lift you up. This is the trick. This is what all these teachers and philosophers who really counted, who really touched the alchemical gold, this is what they understood. This is the shamanic dance in the waterfall. This is how magic is done. By hurling yourself into the abyss and discovering it's a featherbed.
Wow. You'll have to send that to me. That's awesome.
I will. Isn't it so good? It's my fave.
That is so good. That's it. That's it right there.
That's it.
It had been in my vision. It was something that was in my heart. It was the vibratory pattern that I was born to live with, and maybe my sons as well. Who knows? Because now it's, another generation being raised on the St. Lawrence River and, boats and back and forth to Canada and just all that whole experience that the river is. It was on my vision board. It was in my vibratory pattern. I believed that I would do it. I had the belief and the faith. I took the action that was there to be taken, and then the answer appeared.
Mm-hmm. There are no problems, only solutions. And
yeah, and I'm just so grateful that, and it changed my life. I don't mean to sound cliche, but being able to spend my summers up in upstate New York and on the river and where I grew up, it is just so deeply meaningful to me. So,
well, there will be a dozen or so of us on your door in Thousand Island.
Absolutely,
because you did a very poor job of dissuading us.
yes, it's an extraordinary place. So,
You are an extraordinary woman, Jackie. You're such an inspiration. As we sort of wind down here, what is the best way for people who would like to connect with you and follow your work and all that jazz?
Sure. So there's a few things, and people aren't driving, so you can jot this down. I'm so passionate about my consciousness work that I have a website for both the Calming the Chaos and the Money Vibe books, where you can actually get them for free.
Oh wow, cool.
So the Calming the Chaos book, which is about your consciousness with time, and it's a killer self-management productivity program, is calmingthechaos-book.com. calmingthechaos-book.com. And if money is your thing, if you're up against it and perhaps feeling afraid, if you're listening to this during the coronavirus experience or after, that is moneyvibemethod.com. moneyvibemethod.com. And you can get the book for free there as well. So those are two places to reach me. But then, obviously, reaching me at JackieWoodside.com, and you can use the contact button there. JackieWoodside.com is my overall website. Or just send me an email, Jackie@JackieWoodside.com. You can follow me on Twitter @JackieWoodside, and my Facebook page at Jackie Woodside Speaker. But I have a really fun page called the Vibe Tribe on Facebook. If any of your people want to hop over on the Vibe Tribe, that's another place to interact with me.
Cool. And can you say the Calming the Chaos one again? I'm just going to put it in the show notes here.
Thank you. So it's Calming the Chaos. Is one word. Obviously, it's a URL. Mm-hmm. So www.calmingthechaos and then dash. So a dash book.
Got
it.
So
Calming the Chaos dash book.
Okay. And then Money Vibe Method. Those are the two places.
Moneyvibemethod.com.
Okay. Yep. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for putting that in the show notes. And I would love to hear from your listeners. Matt Belair is a good friend of mine. You guys might know his podcast. And, this is just such an extraordinary podcast. I love having a podcast that's beyond sound bites, where we can actually connect and engage. So I hope some of your listeners will reach out to me and tell me that you met me on the show.
Yeah, I imagine you will hear from quite a few, because you have definitely manifested your our co-creative aim of having an epic podcast.
It's an epic podcast.
I feel
awesome.
so inspired. And I do have one final question for you as we wind down here, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Jackie Woodside?
The meaning of life. Well, I honestly believe that the meaning of life has whatever meaning you give it. Mm-hmm. So I'm very passionate about the purpose of life. So the purpose of life is to grow in consciousness back to the divinity from which you came. Growing more compassionate, more loving, more kind, more accepting, more into our oneness, more into our unity, and subjugating any thought of separation from your mind. The meaning of life is the meaning that you give it. I believe there is no inherent meaning. Life is here to grow. Trees grow. The universe is growing. The universe itself is expanding and getting bigger.
Right.
Like life is here to grow and expand. And what we're here to grow and expand is not the GDP. It's not your retirement account and portfolio. Those are fun. Nothing wrong with that. But what we are here to grow is in consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for co-creating my and the listeners' consciousness expansion exercise. It has been so joyous, and I'm so appreciative. And all of you out there listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, journey well. Love you all so much. And if you're feeling the call to come for a week retreat-style Mystic Manor immersion, remember to go now and book your time to speak with me directly about stepping into the optimistic vortex at calendly.com/talk with Brandon while there are still spots left. Otherwise, I look forward to co-creating magic with you at the Mystic Manor.